They're muted. Hey-yo, there we go. Oh, the Golden Stallion's here for you, baby. Oh, man. All right. I think we got the technical issue solved. Yeah, okay, definitely got it solved. What the? Let's see. So we got a few people in the chat room already, which is nice. If you're having issues, what I'll do is I will put the Hangout link again in the chat room on YouTube. And then, oh, wait, actually, can't exactly do that. All right, so, well, we're running. We've got 7 viewers. This is something I talked about in the last Hangout, is that, boy, does Hangouts every once in a while run into a whole lot of troubles. There's always some kind of odd goddamn fluke. All right, let's see what we can do here. Open this up. And I'm all doing this from one screen on one computer, which is not necessarily the most optimal setup, but it's what I got. And then there's the chat. So let me post the Hangout link in the chat. See if anyone has an issue there. And hey. Okay, I see got one person. Hey. And then, oh, we already got a couple questions in. You got one about Bitcoin, and we got one about well, let's see, Brian, what is your thoughts on using Amazon Stick to watch TV shows and movies in the U.S. and around the world? Do you consider the Amazon Stick part of the Internet of Things family? Okay. Oh, we got one guy coming into the Hangout here. So yeah, when you come into the Hangout, just in case if you're about to enter it, just have yourself muted, and you can even turn off your video if you want. And when I get the chance to get to you, I'll let you know, and I'm going to have to call you by the name that's on your thing. Like right now, Jacob's in the Hangout, and when I'm ready for him, I'll have to call him out by name. So just pay attention to what name you have listed under Google. It's totally understandable and perfectly okay if there's some kind of issue. So let's see. Is anyone else? You can let me know. Oh, here we go. Okay, we got someone else coming in. Okay. And I'm just going to, yep, Daniel muted himself. Fantastic. All right. So, what I'm going to do is, so we have these 2 questions here first. Oh, yeah. Okay. Now everybody's able to get in. I don't know what the hell is going on with that. That's the wonder of Google for you folks. And we'll keep everybody muted here. And do keep in mind that I will be absolutely tyrannical as far as the who's in the Hangout room and what's going on. And there, we got Pace. Hell yeah. So I'm just gonna mute Pace here. Everybody just wants to keep themselves muted until, I kind of call on you. But we got, 4 people in the dock. I love it. Now I want to touch on quickly a couple of the questions that are actually, they've been sitting there as soon as I started the show. So they're sitting in the live chat, which you can ask that way if you want, or of course you can just join the Hangout, which I put the link in the YouTube chat. And you can, you can certainly be a part of it that way, and then we can kind of talk back and forth. So real quick, I want to touch on these 2 questions. Then I'm going to start getting to people. I think Jacob showed up first, then probably we'll get to Daniel, then we'll get to Jay, and then we'll get to Pace. We'll try and keep it in order here. So the first question comes from AB. Brian, can you explain what the fuck is up with Bitcoin and the block size debate, and what investors in Bitcoin who have been holding for a few years should do, if anything, in your opinion? Okay, so I won't spend a whole ton of time on this. The bottom line is that right now Bitcoin is getting to the levels of speed of your worst wire transfer. I mean, and I'm being kind of broad in saying that. And the problem is that, so there's 2 solutions to this. Like, how do we solve the speed? How do you solve the cost of each transaction for Bitcoin, right? Because it used to just be fractions of a cent. Now it can cost multiple cents to even, frankly, a few dollars, depending on what you have going on. And how do you solve this? So the 2 solutions that have been brought up, and that doesn't mean that that there aren't more, I should say, but the 2 solutions that have been brought up are blockchain unlimited and segregated witness, or what's called SegWit. I talked about this briefly recently, or not briefly, I talked about it quite a bit on a recent Patreon episode. And the issues here is that, so what Bitcoin Unlimited is recommending is to just get rid of the block size entirely. Okay, because the block size, how much data you have right now, it's at like 1 megabyte. And you can only get, when you have, which by some metrics, Bitcoin is at a user base of about 10 million users. Okay. And when you get, that many people wanting to transact all the time, it ends up becoming very slow because you can only fit so much data, within effectively, a hashing process. Okay. And so the argument is, well, that you need to increase it. Okay. And so now Segregated Witness is talking about increasing anywhere between a 2 megabyte to 4 megabyte size, which, in size as compared to right now, it's 1 megabyte in size. And the argument goes is that might solve this problem for a few years, maybe even a decade, something like that. Now, Bitcoin Unlimited's suggestion is to just get rid of block size limits entirely. That's kind of where the name Unlimited comes from. And there's other things involved with these too, like SegWit is supposed to connect with the Lightning Network and all this. With Bitcoin Unlimited, now the concern there. Now, if you're asking me if I had to choose between those two, and my answer is actually a third way. But if you're, what would I do? What would I choose between those two? I would choose SegWit because SegWit, now there's parts of SegWit like connecting to the Lightning Network that people could take issue with, that people could have a problem with, because the Lightning Network, in some people's minds, could end up becoming its own little bank because there needs to be kind of this off-blockchain mutual agreement of a transaction. All right. Now with Bitcoin, or and I get that, but SegWit doesn't require the Lightning Network. Okay, so you can do SegWit, which has other capabilities, other possibilities, and not have to mess with the Lightning Network. So that's part of the reason that I'm a little more amenable to SegWit than I am Bitcoin Unlimited. Now, my problem with Bitcoin Unlimited is that when the block size limits are limitless, you are going to eventually the amount of right now what the blockchain. The Bitcoin blockchain is over 100 gig, something like that. If suddenly every transaction, or not every transaction, but suddenly if the block size limit wasn't 1 megabyte, at a shot, suddenly it would turn into, hell, who knows how much it could be. It could be in the gigs, it could be in whatever. I mean, you're going to end up where the Bitcoin blockchain gets into maybe into the petabytes, just ridiculous sizes. And let's face it, not everybody has the ability to store that much of a blockchain. And so then the Bitcoin blockchain could become very, very centralized, frankly, very quickly. I mean, that's a little bit of a doomsday scenario, and I can appreciate that. But that's, those are kind of the two main arguments of what's going on. Now, so the 1/3 solution is that just some kind of compromise will be come to, between all these camps, that everybody will be okay with. And this sort of thing has kind of happened before. There was that meeting in Hong Kong, was it last year or the year before, that where they all kind of agreed, all right, we'll go with SegWit and we're going to do, this 2 megabyte, kind of increase, with the block size limit. Now that never happened exactly, but a compromise can get reached where everybody, the miners, the community, the core developers, and whoever can all kind of get together and they can come up with something, that everybody's, a compromise that everybody's kind of okay with. So if you're a longtime investor, I would myself, I would just kind of stick my feet in the ground and say, no, these two solutions may not be the best. Even though, like I said, SegWit is not as, SegWit offers you options, as where blockchain unlimited or Bitcoin Unlimited is just, this drastic change. But my real answer to this, and then we're going to, I'm going to get on to another quick question. Then we're going to start taking, everybody that's here and ready and lined up. I love it. But my real answer is and actually, when we get to Pace, he might have something to say about this. but my real answer is that, I don't see why Bitcoin needs to grow. And that's what really this is all about, is how do you address the growth that Bitcoin is experiencing? I mean, in my opinion, most people don't understand, why they even want to deal with Bitcoin. And so then why even, frankly, why even use it? But I also, understand that my position on that comes from, my ideological position that I don't think we're ever going to see a free, world where the entire planet Earth is anarchy, or is anarchism in a good way. I don't really believe that that's going to happen. So like I'm one of those guys. In fact, they even I got asked last year to speak at PorcFest. I didn't do it, but last year I got asked to be on a panel because they know I'm one of those anti-growth guys. And so they're like, oh, wow, you're one of those rare dudes. We need, we want to debate you and all this stuff. And I didn't do it, not because I was afraid. I didn't go to PorcFest. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of my stance, is just like, I don't see why grandma needs to use Bitcoin. She doesn't understand, and it's no offense to grandma. It's just, it's not for her. Like for me, cryptocurrencies are about creating new investment opportunities for people that can seize the day. And it's for, honestly, black markets. And I don't mean that as a slight either. I mean, black markets as in markets, unregulated markets, that the government, can't do shit to, and good. So it doesn't necessarily have to be drugs. I mean, I talk about this story all the time. On Silk Road, I bought stuff on Silk Road. I bought banned books. I mean, that's the importance of what this allows for. Okay. Now, not everybody wants to go out and buy banned books. So guess what? Not everybody needs Bitcoin. You get my point. So anyway, I mean, there's arguments to go back and forth on all of that, but I hope that answered that question and kind of explained what the arguments are. No matter where you fall on it, myself, I am like just anti Bitcoin Unlimited straight up, regardless of what the other arguments are. Bitcoin Unlimited, in my opinion, is absolute centralization. It almost by intent. It's really bad news. Okay, let's get to the one other one in the live chat here, and then we'll start taking the people. Woo. So let's see. This is from Pentazoid. Brian, what is your thoughts on using Amazon Stick to watch TV shows and movies in the U.S. and around the world? Do you consider Amazon Stick part of the Internet of Things family? Yeah, not really. In fact, I like a lot of these, like Roku sticks, or even Chromecast, or does it have a new name now? Google, so they keep changing the name of it. But you know what I'm talking about. But these TV sticks, or even the computer models, or there's like Miracast, or like I said, Intel has entire like PCs that come in a stick and all this. I like that because what it does is it incentivizes, in my opinion, the television to be dumb. And, we already talked about Vault 7 and a bunch of other things on Sovryn Tech, where you realize there's a good reason you want your TV to be really fucking dumb. So I would rather all the smart technologies, all the apps and everything exist on a separate device than the television itself. Okay. And it could be a separate device that doesn't have to be plugged in all the time, right? Because generally your TV is plugged in all the time, blah, blah, blah. So I think, and certainly I think Amazon actually has a winner and they do, the sales are very good. As far as their TV devices, connected devices go. So I don't, as much as I despise Amazon, I mean, it's certainly a viable thing. It's a good thing. And actually the gaming possibilities I still see coming down the pike in the future, because, Amazon bought their own game dev house and all this other stuff, and they're doing very well with Amazon Underground. So, for as far as entertainment purposes, no, I think it's a wonderful thing. I think it's fine and dandy, and, take it around the world with you. I mean, you can't beat it. The things are so goddamn small, and have a good time with it. So yeah, I like my smarts to be separate from, I want my TVs as dumb as a box of rocks, and have everything else be done on the outside. And I get the advantages, like the TV that Stephanie and I have that we just recently got actually has Roku built into it. Now, it's a very basic setup, thankfully, but I mean, again, it's almost impossible to buy a dumb TV today. But I get it. The apps are pretty cool. Like, watching Collider, like Jedi Council, like right on the TV without having to hook up my computer to it. Boy, that's damn nice. Or Netflix. I was watching Voltron 84 the other day, and I mean, all these things are really, really nice. So I understand that, but again, Amazon, the Fire TV or Fire Sticks or whatever, they really solve the problem I have, where you can still make the TVs dumb and you just have these devices that connect, USB or HDMI. So anyway, hope that answers that. Let me just check on the rest of the chat room here. Okay, cool. Modular smartness. Yeah, there you go. I like that. That's a good one, Pace. All right. So like I said, I was going to start off with who got in the room first. And of course, that might be a little unfair because Google, was acting kind of wonky. But then, if life was fair, we'd actually all get what we deserve. And, I don't know if that's a good thing. So all right, Jacob, actually, if you're ready, if you want to go ahead, you can unmute yourself and pop on your video if you want. And I see you unmuted yourself. Fantastic. But you don't have to do video if you don't want to. There's the man.
Hey, how's it going?
Going great. It's a beautiful Sunday on Ice Planet Zero here. What do you got, Jacob?
Well, notice you got your goatee. You're looking really like a supervillain these days.
Yeah, I'm trying out for a role for Ming the Merciless in the new Flash Gordon movie, and so I was like, all right, yeah, I think I can do this. I just got to get it hanging down a little more. That's all.
Yeah, I think it works.
Right on.
I just want to talk a little about in the past you've mentioned. Actually, it was very recent. You mentioned that you had just recorded an episode that you weren't too sure about releasing.
Yeah.
What was that episode? And if you haven't released it, I think I speak for everyone in saying, come on, man, release it.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. Yeah, so I did end up releasing it, and I don't recall that I did any edits. And yeah, that episode was in February. And the episode, like, why I was a little concerned is not that I was really concerned. I started naming a bunch of names, and I just let out, like a lot of. It was the episode where I think I was talking about an Acapulco. Not that I went to an Acapulco, but where I was talking about like that I'm annoyed that people even go to it, and that like a lot of these guys that are absolute scum, in the liberty movement and whatever. That they get a lot of very positive social signals from people, and this is a conversation I still have to this day. And that's, that was really what that was the episode that you're asking about is that one. Because yeah, I mean, it's always, and I said it in that episode, like everybody talks about, well, how do we, what do we do with malcontents and, bad actors, within a community or something? How do we solve this without police and all that? And usually people say, well, you ostracize. But the thing is we have, tons and tons of evidence, quite frankly, that, so many big names. In fact, it's hard for me to think of a name that's actually a pretty straightforward, a guy or gal, that, it's right out there in the open that these people, like they don't practice what they preach by any stretch of the imagination. And, but people just keep soaking them up. That, they keep clicking like on their shit. They keep, going to events. They keep seeing them speak. They keep trying to do business deals with them. I mean, they keep doing all this other stuff. And so that's the one where I felt I was feeling a little icky. And maybe what was going on inside for me at the time was a lot harsher and than maybe what came out on the microphone. And so maybe that's why I felt so concerned about it. But that is the episode, if you're wondering. So anyway, yeah, go ahead. Did you have another question?
No, I don't know. I think I was just wondering, if it had maybe been like one of your teased like Book of Enoch specials or something.
Oh yeah, boy, I still have that one too. Yeah, funny thing, Jacob. I almost feel no concern about saying that shit anymore for the very same reason that I was just talking about, is that these people can say the wackiest, craziest shit. They could do terrible things to women. They can do all this horrendous stuff, and nobody cares. Like nobody gives a shit. Nobody treats them any differently. So just because I have some wild historical notions, about humanity and all this stuff, I'm just like, what am I even worried about? It's like nobody fucking cares. It's like that Dennis Nedry Jurassic Park meme. It's like, look, nobody cares. So yeah. So I really like my crazier ideas that rely heavily on speculation and not so much on fact. I'm actually really not scared necessarily to put those out there, because yeah, I did an episode like you mentioned, Jacob, a few years ago. It was about the Book of Enoch, and I didn't want to release it because I was like, I'm going to lose my audience. They're going to think I'm some kind of whack job or something. And now I don't think that way, really at all. So glad you brought that up. Maybe I'm going to have to dig that out of the archives. But anyway, did you have anything else, Jacob? Go for it.
Well, I mean, you've done many Conspirathon episodes, so I mean, I think that that really fits right in with it, and I don't think that you got any real heat for those.
No, right, I didn't. Yeah,
and so I mean, I think something like that would probably be accepted by your audience. But
yeah, I mean, ironically, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, but on the topic of calling people out, yeah, some of those guys, they deserve to be called out, and
Absolutely.
They're not called out enough by people who have any kind of a voice. So
yeah, no, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And it's sad too, because a lot of the people that do the proper calling out are women, and they get written off just for being women. And I think that's such bullshit. And then when a guy swoops in, they say, oh, you're white knighting or something. And it's like, oh, wow. So you figured out how to like try and shut down all dissent, and any critic of you. And then that should be more concerning than anything they actually even did, is just their, kind of their verbal, trickery and hoodwinking. So.
Yeah. Well, I agree, but that's pretty much all I've got right now. I just did want to say that, I listened to the yoga special. And,
oh yeah.
Describing the retreat as a vision of the future. I really dug that. So.
Well, that's actually, thank you for that feedback. Did you have anything else you want to say on that one in particular?
Well, I mean, I appreciated the whole thing. I try to do yoga on occasion myself. The first time I actually did it was led by Stephanie. She was at the the Midwest Peace and Liberty Fest a couple of years ago.
Oh yeah.
Well, when you weren't there that time, but she did a couple yoga sessions, and so I was interested to hear what your take on the retreat was, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, well, no, I appreciate that, Jacob. Actually, that was an episode, honestly, like towards the end of that, where I was feeling a little nervous too, because it's like, oh yeah, of course he loved it. There's just women everywhere and all this shit, right? And it's like, well, yeah, duh. But but I mean, at the same time, yeah, I mean, a lot of people, sometimes don't like to hear that sort of thing. So yeah, but it really was, absolutely, it did really feel like a vision of the future. It was a hell of an experience, and I look forward to going to it again. So anyway, Jacob, thanks so much, man, for being on. You can hang out in the Hangout room, and if there's not more questions later, and if you have another question, feel free to ask it.
No problem. I was gonna let someone in anyway. So
fantastic. All right, thanks, Jacob. Let's see. Let's get to, was it Jay that was next? I think or was it Daniel? I think it was Jay. Let's go with Jay, and then we'll get to Daniel. I know.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
How's my audio and video? Am I good?
Okay, audio is fantastic, and
right.
Video looks good, looking good. You don't have your Starfleet uniform on this time. What the hell?
I don't. I'm so sorry for being out of uniform. I didn't have a chance to get a shower, but I promise next time I will be in uniform.
No worries.
This is what do you got, man? Affair. All right. So you were in one of your Q&As. You were doing you were sharing a little bit about your work day, how you work, what you do, how you shoot out of bed and you do all this and. And I'm thinking to myself, and why is he doing all this? And you said, like, you're working this hard so you don't have to work this hard, later in the future.
Exactly.
Yeah. And because I'm kind of going through a phase of life where I want to develop my own future rather than just kind of like find a life path that was already pre-warned for me. But like, yeah, that fucking one right there, I'll just do that one. I'm kind of wondering what your vision is that you're working towards. Obviously Stephanie's in it, of course.
Oh,
yeah. So like if for you, I assume this is going to involve some sort of income that you can just kind of like fire and not totally forget, but it kind of passively generates enough for you to, where you don't have to work, a megaton hours like you do now every day.
Sure. Yeah. It's definitely, a lot of it comes down to a degree of passive income.
Right.
And that includes, I'm writing, I'm actually writing a book right now that I hope to have released before PorkFest. I have the video games, which Hyperchronius 2 is coming out this year. I mean, there's like a lot of projects that I want to just make and sit. The one part that could never really be passive is I never imagine a part in my life where I'm not doing this show, where I'm not doing Sovryn Tech. And so that part is I'm always going to have to be active, to do that really. As far as what my life ends up looking like, I mean, I can answer in the abstract, and in the abstract, it's like just, and this isn't the best thing to have. In fact, something I've been working on recently. Now, sometimes people lay these things out and they're often kind of woo, it's like The Secret kind of bullshit and all this.
Right.
And that's vision boards. Yep, exactly. You got it, baby. Yeah. Vision boards. But I've heard other people that I don't consider to be crackpots mention them, and I can see them as being very helpful, and I'm still very much working on mine, so I can't give you like a 100% answer, but the feeling, or I guess the feeling that I want inside when I know that I've gotten to the point that I want to get to is that I don't have to look at a screen if I don't want to. I don't have to touch a keyboard if I don't want to.
Bingo.
Permanent AFK is kind of is the abstract idea that I mentioned. And so that's kind of the feeling that I'm looking for as far as what it ends up looking like. I mean, I can think of places where I want to live in the world, and I know who I want in my life.
Right.
But other than that, like, it's not crazy shit like and I'm not saying it's crazy. If people want this, that's fine. It's not like having a yacht and all this different stuff. I'd love to just be able to do this show, forever and ever. I mean, I really appreciate the legacies that, not that I need to have a legacy or anything, but I appreciate the legacies that a lot of like the great radio hosts, of like the 20th century, where, I mean, they went on forever. It was amazing. And when they'd retire, it was such a huge deal. And and people still remember their names. And I mean, that's,
you remember Art Bell when he was a big thing. And then when he retired, people were like, "Oh, Art, where are you going?"
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's amazing, to get to the point to where people are just so used to hearing, you and what you have to say and all that, and the message that you've gotten out there and the other people you've been able to give a voice to, which I also, need to make more of a thing with Sovryn Tech. I'd love for, to end off with that at the end of the day. But anyway, I mean, what are you thinking? Do you have thoughts on it? Like on where you're heading and
I have lots of vision boards, and all of them trigger all sorts of insecurity and fear. And I'm working towards facing all of that. And especially I've reached a very point in my life where I'm grateful for. I've met two wonderful human beings that are what I consider living examples of the people that I would want in my life. And I'm like, oh man, I really got to step up my game, because if I want to, like you said, like I have a vision of who I want, but it was just an abstract until I met these two people. I'm like, oh, okay, sure. I got it. It was like, and so when I think about like, I don't want to have to be employed. Like I just want it to be optional, and I want mine in like investing, for example. That was going to be my second follow-up question. Like, I don't want to feel like I just have to put my money somewhere, like on stocks and bonds or something like that, just because that's where you put it. Right. That's why I jumped on helium as soon as I heard it. Like within 15 minutes, once I understood what you guys were talking about, I'm like,
right on.
I sent pay some dough right away. And it's just, it's one of those things. There you go.
Yeah, there he is with the thumbs up. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. So and I think for me, Sovryn Tech has turned into one of those shows that I can foresee myself contributing to financially, regardless, even if I'm poor. Like, I mean, even $1 a month, $5 a month, whatever I want to do, it's the principle behind it. And you are the voice of this alternative lifestyle that I don't think has a voice in our contemporary society, at least not that I know of. Like, no one talks about using 24-hour time just as a personal choice. No one talks about using universal time. No one talks about questioning the Christian calendar. No one says, fuck you, anarchism. And then, oh, wait, never mind. That totally, I mean, like, there's nobody else out there. And I can see why you created Sovryn Tech. And I think to myself, like, that act alone is an effort on your behalf, I think, of creating some sort of community, even if it's mostly listenership. But like, when you have more time on your hands, you're going to have like a community that you could go out to and say, hey, y'all want to make a little mini community here? I mean, I know it's a big, scary step, but that's also one of my visions, like small, tight knit community of people that don't suck.
Yeah, no, right on. Actually, and yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, because I think that's the real answer to getting, kind of the Free State Project question, liberty, or not question, but statement, liberty in our lifetime. And yes. I've always felt that way, that look, you find, like, if you're lucky, you get 3 or 5, maybe you can get 15. I don't know, whatever the number ends up being, but you get together, you live in the same area, and you just live it up, and again, that's that 99% of the way being there. And the 1% that you didn't get to total freedom is you might have to pay land taxes or something.
Right. Yeah. But relatively speaking, I think at this point in my life, it's more about like, who am I investing my time in? Yes. And what am I doing? And when I see people like you doing what you're doing, and I know how hard you're working, but you sound really fucking fulfilled, by and large, you really do. And when you and Stephanie are on, when I hear you guys interact, I'm like, and as individuals and as a couple, they sound really fucking fulfilled, and these are, I think you're also living examples of what I think a conscious existence looks like, and not just living, but like a conscious existence. And I just wanted to, give a public, verbal audio shout out to you, Stephanie, And if there's anyone else like you out there on the planet that's doing what you're doing with the mindset that you're doing it, feel free to let me know. But so far, you're the only person who. There are thoughts in my head that I always hear in my head, and you're one of the few people that verbalizes some of those thoughts. So it's kind of weird to hear thoughts in my head coming out of my speakers. That is in my voice.
Well, I'm honored, Jay, and I mean that. I hope I actually do live up to everything you just said. I mean, I'm ridiculously honored.
You are. I mean, just by the fact that you insist on like. You the way you insist on living, like you're not just like existing because life. I'm just going to go through this life thing, then I'm going to die. Like you're insisting on a life that I feel like you're carving it, despite the challenges, despite the resistance. You're carving it out, and people love you or hate you. They eat that shit up one way or the other. And part of me wants to have my own show that's like not Sovryn Tech, but like you're exemplifying a degree of courage here that is, I think, very honorable and something to look up to, I think, and we're both bald. So there's that too.
Yeah. Right on, baby. Yeah, right. No, thank you so much. I mean it, Jay. That's, yeah. I mean, and that's it. Like, and you know what, if you want to do a podcast, like I always say, I mean, fucking do it, because there needs to be more people talking about this stuff. I mean, talking about how you don't hear anybody else saying this. I mean, that's why, and I've gotten, plenty of messages from other people saying, hey, you're right when you say this, that the reason you do the show is because you don't hear anybody else, representing your opinions and everything. And it's true. I don't know where they are, and I'd love to know where they are. Okay. And I love that feeling that you mentioned. I love the feeling of, hearing or reading from somewhere else, something, voice given to thoughts that I've had and maybe that I couldn't put together in words because the English language is such a piece of shit. And, it is a really powerful, feeling to have that. I am like, I don't well, here it is. I don't have words, to express how much that means to me, to know that I can do that for other people. And, right. and really it all, but understand, and I and this isn't like some kind of faux modesty. I mean this, like, the patrons are making this happen. Okay. You guys, you guys and gals are absolutely making this happen all the way across the board because you afford me to do it. So, so thanks so much.
I'm happy to contribute any way I can, honestly.
No, I appreciate that. And it sounds like, just based on what you're telling me, it sounds like, you're really reaching at least what I think is where you feel really fulfilled and the real happy life and stuff like, Epicurus and others would talk about.
I'm getting there.
You just find those few people, make those social connections. And then I think honestly, a lot of the rest can fall into place after the fact.
Okay.
And using, and I think that's wonderful, man. So did you have any other quick thoughts? And I want to get
it was mostly about investing. I don't know. Sure. Do you do any investing? Like this is the helium thing we were talking. I mentioned it briefly earlier. Like when I heard that, I'm like, oh, maybe this is a way that's alt lifestyle type of way for me to get into BTC and all the other stuff. And how do you handle investments, if you don't mind my probing there?
No problem. So like, well, I'll be. I don't know how often I've ever really. I've kind of hinted this. I never really talked about it much on the show. Years ago, this is no longer true at all. Years ago, I used to be knee deep kind of in the investment world and
I did not
second
know
market and all that. I was knee deep, this is before I went into the military and everything. And it's all a very long story. Maybe sometime I'll tell it. But today, I don't really, not in any traditional sense. I don't really mess with it much anymore. Now, as far as with cryptos, much like what helium does. I've done, I guess you could say something kind of similar, manually. Helium is automating what used to be a manual process, right? And I'm sure Pace, when we have Pace on, he could talk about it too. But yeah, I know certain, like right now, okay, for an example of something I would do as far as like investing right now. If I got, paid by a client right this second, and usually they pay me in Bitcoin, and I got that Bitcoin, I would probably go to shapeshift.io or something like that, or an exchange, whatever. And I would instantly turn it into Zcash, because right now Zcash is kind of at a low. Okay. now there's two quick trains of thought on this, okay? And one, like I actually believe in Zcash. I think Zcash is going to have value and lasting value, so I don't mind transmitting into, or transferring into that anyway and exchanging into that in the first place. The other way, now that's one way you can go about it, okay? And another thing that I actually recommend reading is a book by Harry Brown called The Permanent Portfolio. You might have heard of it. If you haven't,
what was it again? I heard something portfolio.
Oh, The Permanent Portfolio. Yeah, and it's by Harry Brown, who was a libertarian presidential candidate. And actually, boy, you want to talk about a great radio show. This guy, I used to torrent his entire series of radio shows from the 90s, just because I thought it was so important. It still is. It's still, this guy's great, or was great. He passed away, unfortunately. Anyway, so now you can invest in, like, say, things you believe in, but then also there's the option of, like, something I did like 2 years ago was BitShares. I knew BitShares it's still kind of out there, but BitShares I knew was going to die. So this is all crypto investing. It's the only kind of any remotely thing like investing that I would ever really do. Okay. For me personally, I'm not saying it's wrong if anyone does it, does other methods. So with BitShares, like, I knew BitShares was going to die. So after a fashion, I was shorting it, meaning that I was expecting it to, get this really big bump. And then I was, just going to sell off on the bump. And I mean, that's not really shorting it, but well, anyway, so you can invest in things, that are going to fail, because most of these cryptos do. And when they first come out, there's a lot of excitement around some of them, even though this is kind of leveled off. And I mean, these like altcoins and all this shit. And you can invest in those, and then once they hit some kind of peak, or you quadruple, what you put into it, and you can do this with $100. I mean, then you could end up doing very well with that. But a part of me, and this is just me, and I'm not blaming anybody for doing anything differently. A part of me, I don't know, I like these days, I just feel a little icky kind of doing that. Like, I'd rather invest in things that I think are going to go up in value for very good reasons, like Zcash, because it's going to be anonymous, or, or even Monero, or like Darkcoin. People that invest in Darkcoin are doing very well. And I don't really have a whole lot of beef with Darkcoin. So, hey, rock and roll. So yeah, any investing, just the crypto space, or the cryptocurrency space, gets rid of the barriers to entry to investing. So that's where I would look if you're asking me what I would do. Maybe you could listen back to this later, and just kind of, pick apart what was said. But that's where I look. So anyway, I mean, is that helpful? Is that what you're kind of?
Yeah, I already got some things bookmarked, so we're good.
Cool. Yeah, and also, precious metals. I mean, I'm not saying this because they're a sponsor, but seriously, like, getting gold and silver and all that is a totally valid thing to do.
I'm coming onto that ship as well, because I used to be really hesitant about that stuff. Like, what the fuck am I going to do with the gold coin? When shit hits that whole scenario of when shit hits the fan, you're like, I can't eat a gold coin and crap like that. But I'm getting the arguments ingrained in me. And I'm like, okay, I can see it now. So I'm thinking precious metals and digital cash, like cryptocurrencies, things like that, and versus because I've got some investments and other low investments in the usual places, but they're not good enough. I want to expand out a bit. So yeah,
absolutely. So yeah, that sounds good. Again, that permanent portfolio, if you read that book, like, basically, or you can even read it like on a Wikipedia page probably, but the basic idea is that, like, it keeps things steady. Like, you have some of your money, like, in 4 quadrants usually, like, you have it in gold, or you have it in stocks, or you have it in, something. You pick like 4 things effectively.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah, and one, you'd have precious metals, you have cryptocurrencies, then you do this, and and each one can kind of offset each other. It's a very interesting program. Also, Jake DeSillis, who I just love, with the voluntary life, he talks a lot about it too. So
okay.
Anyway, yeah. So if that's all you got, we'll move on to the next guy here. Cool, Jay. Thanks so much, man.
Of course.
All right, let's go to Daniel. Are you available, man?
I am. Can you hear me?
Hey, I can hear you, baby.
Awesome. I'm leaving my video off, so you'll give the audience something to envision in their mind's eye.
I'm gonna imagination. Less is more. There you go.
Especially with me, yeah. I'm going to take it on a slightly lighter tangent than Jay did, but
sure.
I'm curious, as someone who doesn't believe that there is intelligent life beyond Earth, or even on Earth for that matter, but at what age? Yeah, two parts actually to this question. at what age, and you can ballpark this, did you come to this, established your position that there is no alien life? And then part two of the question is, growing up with Star Trek and sci-fi and everything, how does a thought like that even enter your mind, let alone like how do you reconcile those two?
I love it. I would have never thought of that question. That's fantastic. Okay, so I guess we'll do part one, and maybe I'll have you repeat part two. I guess it's just how did that thought ever enter my mind, considering how much I'm into science fiction and always have been. So what I ended up reading was, and in fact, you're going to hear my keyboard possibly. I'm going to look this. I want to get the authors because I always kind of forget their names. But there is a book, and it's actually a hypothesis called Rare Earth. But there's a book called Rare Earth. And where the hell are their names? This is terrible that they're not there. Anyway, there's a book called Rare Earth, and the idea is overall that, well, I know some of the people that kind of anyway. No, I'm not going to go into the names. So there's a book called Rare Earth, and it lays out like all of the real problems with the idea that there's just life everywhere. Now, it was actually, as a young person, it was kind of easy for me, despite Star Trek, and I'll talk about that in a second. It was and when that book came out, I think in 2001. So I can't remember the authors, but I can remember, when it came out. When I read that, one of the things that first came to my mind is there's the theory there's the statement in Talmud Torah, okay, the Jewish holy books, that there's only like 18,000 planets in the entire universe that can support life. Obviously, there's more than 18,000, celestial bodies, but
18 is a good number for the Talmud.
Right? Yeah. I mean, and this isn't like, and it's not really even Kabbalah either. But yeah, the 18 thing, it fits anyway. So like as soon as I read this book, Rare Earth, and it was a kind of a sensational book in 2001, especially this is the thing, is that at the time in the late 90s, and I'm sure before, but I never went to them. I didn't start attending like conventions, really heavy science fiction conventions, until I was like 17, because that's when I was legally able to fly on my own. When like at the time in the late 90s and even in the early aughts, science fiction conventions were just as much science conventions, because those were almost unheard of. I mean, you had symposiums that were very stuffy, but to like talk about the really wild stuff, even like maybe like UFO shit and all that, which, part of what turned me off to a lot of the UFO stuff is I actually saw the guys, who were espousing it. And I'm like, nah, your head's not on straight, for a bunch of reasons. But yeah, I read that book, and it was really popular kind of on the convention circuit. And I thought, and you can still get it today, and it's a brilliant little read. It has like 2 or 3 or 4 authors to it, so that's why it's hard to remember all the authors. But that convinced me. And the problem with like the Fermi paradox, and I just recently, I got a little bit re-emboldened with it when there was that theory going around that a lot of people have kind of tossed out. There was the theory that humans actually didn't evolve from monkeys, they evolved from pigs. And now again, regardless of how one feels about that theory, and there's a lot of interesting things behind it. Actually, Stephanie was very intrigued by that as well. And of course, she's a PhD, not that I'm appealing to authority. But, when you think about that, when you think about the chances of, what comprises a human being, and then, or just an animal, and then you think about the chances of how do you get to, what is consciousness, which we still don't have, 100% understanding of. Yeah, I mean, that math alone stands so hard against any math about the universe that somehow there's intelligent life, there must be billions of alien species all over the place. It doesn't gel with me. So I really, I've been emboldened on it over the years, but I guess I would say like around 2001 is when I finally came to the conclusion that, what I did at that time really is I accepted sort of the, kind of the Jewish answer that, well, there's 18,000 species out there. But, compared to what like the Drake equation says, there should be millions. Not 18,000. That's practically nothing. So I do think that there are some out there. They're just so spread apart. There's so few out there. Now, I guess to answer the second part, which is, being into Star Trek, like how could that even enter my mind? How could that even be a part of it? Is that, well, honestly, like what Star Trek really sells better than Alien of the Week is the search for truth. And in fact, I say the same thing every March when it's William Shatner's birthday. Is that, I thank him constantly for, inspiring me to seek knowledge and the truth. Like I remember it, or even with Picard, where you had in The Next Generation, where he talks about in the episode Measure of Man, where he says, the reason we have, or he's talking about courts, which fuck courts, but he's talking about like the court system. He says we have this because it's a crucible where, we end up with a pure product, the truth. And so I think Star Trek does a much better job of actually espousing that you need to look for the truth of things more than it does what it's actually kind of laying out. I mean, the ships are nice, the aliens are fun, the women are sexy, I get it. But, and so the truth is that, like, or should I say the science is, the science is in that, going faster than light, like that doesn't happen. So it's funny that Star Trek kind of inspires people to discover that Star Trek is the science of Star Trek is largely bullshit. And it's an irony, but that's, I guess that to kind of answer that is, how did I come to that conclusion? Well, the conclusion is that unless, and I've given this caveat many times, unless like on Mars, there was once life and that life came to Earth, I just can't, I just don't see how it's possible. And by our understandings of the laws of physics, which I think are pretty good, which is why we can do so much that we do technologically. I just don't see how aliens could really be a part of the picture. So if you don't see them, where are they? So anyway, do you have thoughts on that, Daniel? I think I talked a little way too much on that, but go for it.
No, loving it. I mean, honestly, you do segregate in your head between, fiction, even if it's science fiction, and reality. Sure. So it is what it is. I just found that an amusing thought. And every time the topic comes up on a Sovryn Tech, I giggle to myself. I'm like, that Trekkie.
Well, what do you think? I mean, like, do you think that that there are like millions of alien species? I mean, I'm not going to judge it. Call it.
There's I forget what it's called. The Donald Rumsfeld, what you don't, the unknown unknowns. So I'm confident enough in my intellectual capabilities to say I wouldn't even know. So
sure,
willing to entertain both angles.
Sure, and that humbleness and like, I always say this, boy, the real mark of an intelligent person or species is when they can say they don't know. So that's absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and that's an irony in itself, because it's like, well, the real mark is knowledge, and it's like, no, admitting that you don't know is the real mark. That's true knowledge. So, well, fantastic, Daniel. Do you have anything else you want to get out there, or
too much for a short hangout? But yeah, go on.
All right.
Keep up the good work, man. Thanks,
man. It's good to hear from you. So, and of course, we'll be doing these, more often. In the future. Like I said, I would like for these to end up being like maybe twice a month or maybe even more. Got Roger in the live chat saying, hey, Brian, right on, baby. So anyway, Pace, let's get to Pace. He's been waiting so patiently, man. All of you guys were here right on the bell. I love it.
Hey,
Pace, what's up, baby?
How's it going, Brian?
Doing good. How's things?
They're good. Yeah. In fact, I was only going to ask what Jay asked about, like what your goals are for the future and stuff, which I know you've mentioned many times in different ways. But since that was already asked and you already answered, I think I'll just comment on some of the other things.
Please. Yeah, no, you're welcome to, man. Absolutely. So, and actually, really glad. I'll just say this. Of course, Pace, listeners that know that Pace is kind of the guy behind Helium, which was getting brought up a lot in this hangout. And I'm really glad to hear that people find value in that. I like to think that what we bring on to Sovryn Tech, is the goods, is things that people can actually use, actionable items. So
yeah, well, thank you. I guess that's the only other reason I came on also, was just to say thank you for having me on the show already, and to everybody that's already participated.
Damn right.
It's been great so far. It's heating up. We're doing some fun things. But you mentioned the Bitcoin block size debate. I don't really have an opinion on it. I'm not I'm not sort of like proactive. I'm more reactive, in terms of however the situation is. I'm more of a consequentialist, let's just take the situation as it is and make the best of it.
Yeah. That's a totally valid third way that people are ignoring.
Right.
Yeah.
The one benefit, some people might look at our app, which is a somewhat high frequency, sort of a medium frequency trading. Thankfully, it's done on sort of a side chain, which is uphold.com, and so it's not clogging up the blockchain too much. Nobody's really mentioned that, but I felt like it needed to be said. So,
sure.
So we're not part of the problem. We're not really inflating the block size too much.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing. Like helium itself, I mean, you're kind of future-proof because you don't have to rely on Bitcoin. I mean, you know.
We don't.
Right.
I mean, it really started getting like awesome when we added Ethereum and Litecoin. Uphold just doesn't support Dash or any other crypto right now.
Right. I understand.
But as soon as they do, then I'm going to add it in there because the volatility, just the average moves between them, really makes it fun. It's just a renewable energy source, so we're just harvesting it like a solar collector. But anyway, millions of alien species. I think one thing that people don't think about too much is time, and the fact that we're only having these conversations over the past few decades, whereas the common idea is that the Earth is that the universe is just about 12 billion years old, right? So if you think about, if we've only had these conversations for 12 years or so, or maybe more, but but the time scale that we're thinking about is 1 billion times more than that. Then really, even if there were civilizations growing on systems within 1,000 light years from here, one thing, we'd never be able to see any evidence of them. And another thing is they're probably 1 billionth of the time that they would be in this area. So yeah, like I guess I come to sort of the same conclusion as you, but believing that they're over the time scale of maybe 1 trillion years. Yeah, there could be a ton of other Earths. There could be a ton of other alien life forms, but we're just too far away in space, and space time to be able to interact with them.
Sure. So yeah, there's like with the Fermi paradox, which pretty much says like, okay, so if the Drake equation says there should be, millions or billions of habitable worlds, and then on those, there should be so much life and intelligent life even, coming into existence. The Fermi paradox says, well, then where the hell are they? And, there's some great answers to that. Like one of them is that maybe we're just one of the first ones to evolve, and that down the line, there's going to be a lot more. I'm open to that. Some people say that, they've already come and gone. I mean, because, yeah, you're right. I mean, the universe is what, 13.4 billion years old?
On the regular time scale, our solar system is already is already made of recycled parts from, at least one or two other, solar systems or some celestial body. So it's like, obviously we're just too far removed.
Yeah. So, I mean, so there's answers, to this, to where there still could be a lot of alien life out there. But the thing is, I mean, a lot of it's very theoretical. And, I guess I'm that kind of person that leans on the side of caution that says, no, if there's no signs, it's because it's not there.
That's right.
And not to say that, oh, well, it could be this, and start coming up with all these wild theories,
exactly.
as to where exactly they are. So yeah, what else you got, Pace?
The only other thing you mentioned that I caught on was Star Trek science being bunk. Well, yeah, the telecommunications, perhaps the transportation science, very very impossible. Yeah, as far as we've already as science is established for over 100 years. The social and the survival tech is something that we are genuinely working towards, I would say, and in terms of it showing all these different alien races as sort of a symbol of how humanity needs to treat each other.
Yeah, infinite diversity, infinite combinations.
And then just the progress in food replication and things like that, and stuff like that. So I am excited for the future and think that we can reach I'm motivated by the studies that say that humanity is getting more peaceful over time. So I like that, and I think it is as a result of certain technologies.
Sure. Yeah. I love, I mean, I don't agree with Steven Pinker on everything, but a lot of his works on that the earth is significantly more peaceful today. Yep. I think the evidence stands pretty good on that. I agree with you. Yeah. So I'll be a little more particular in that, the two technologies that I think are impossible would be, warp drive, and which I'm aware of, like red shifting. I know light can actually go faster than light, which would seem to be like a paradox, but but it does.
Barely faster, right?
Right. Yeah. And and then the transporter, which there's that great book that came out in the 90s by Lawrence Krauss, who's just brilliant. But he came out with the physics of Star Trek. There was even a second one for it. And in that, he talks like the transporter is the first thing he gets out of the way, because he says, look, you can't even imagine the computational power that you'd need to reassemble somebody from the molecular level. And, so yeah, I agree. The transporter, warp drive, those aren't happening, but a lot of the other stuff, I totally agree with you.
Much easier to do something similar with, drones and holograms and AR. We could project ourselves into Namibia or China.
Yeah.
In a moment's notice, we could just commandeer some local drones and then just project an image of ourselves, and we could have all these sensors that we'd be able to essentially be there, and it would trick our minds to think that we're actually there. So that's something that's not too far away.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think that actually, I talked to a guy, David Deal at JPL, and and we're talking like 15, well, hell no, almost 20 years ago. So I mean, like I was just shy of a teenager, or out of a teenage, being a teenage person, and like he was saying, kind of, he's like, look, he says we're not going to explore space. He's like, we're not going to be going outside of this solar system. He says we're going to have a great time in the solar system. And I mean, in full disclosure, I was dating his daughter, but he said, he says, what we'll do is, he says, we're just going to send out probes. And he says, we could probably set up relays to where like we could actually, holographically or through like a merged reality. He wouldn't have used those words at the time, like merged reality. That's a thing now. But the idea is that we would be able to transmit, and through various sensors and everything else, that we would be able. That's how we would explore the universe is through drones and robots and all that, and that humans themselves would likely never leave the solar system. And I buy into that quite a bit. And that's not. There's nothing wrong with
just
that.
For the freedom of movement. We would want to be local, so we could explore any. We could switch from Mars to Jupiter in a second.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is one of the things. This is one of the hidden agendas for me. Why I'm so excited about virtual reality, because I think that virtual reality also is going to lead to where we are exploring space and really whole other realms. I mean, not just space, even the ocean. I mean, like all kinds of things like this AR and VR, or mixed reality or merged reality, whatever they want to call it. Those are really going to, like, the amount of knowledge we're going to be able to achieve by developing those technologies further to we are like a telepresence of ourselves. Is just mind boggling, and nobody's selling it that way, which is a shame, because they should be.
Yeah. More than anything, I'm really excited about them as empathy machines, and giving people the chance to be in the shoes of people in the poorest and most destitute or famine or disease-stricken regions of the world. It really, it immediately just blows your mind when you see that video where you're on the streets of Peru and people are giving shoes to these people that don't have any. It's like things like that, or people that are in Syria and you can see a bomb drop and destroy their house in real time. So it's like, whoa, like that is something that I think will have a great tendency to end war, to end that kind of suffering, and give people the chance to share more. It's going to be beautiful. That's the most exciting application for me, because I just want to see people.
Yeah, I agree.
Take that stance with it.
Yeah, especially, I mean, the therapeutic aspects of, virtual reality and mixed reality and all that, where you could actually like really deal with childhood traumas and create where you were, I mean, like that. Oh man. Yeah. I think that, there's going to be some serious healing, for people.
Yeah. Like show me on the video when, when he touched you. It's like, it's right there.
Yeah. I mean, the applications are fucking endless as far as that goes. And as far as like, to getting to the truth outside of you and inside of you, it's really going to be, and boy, do I wish.
And personal family relationships. Oh my gosh. Like it's going to be, it's like, do you want to see, like, people have an argument and it's like, no, I can't read your mind. Well, okay. Well, maybe you can now. And maybe you can see how I saw that fight from my perspective. And then immediately you just take 5 minutes to do that for a 5-minute argument. And you're like, whoa, okay. Argument over. Now we're on the same page again because we see what the problem was and we just fixed it. So
yeah, absolutely. No, I get.
I'm excited. So, yeah, I mean, I could go on and on. Obviously, we could talk about the religious implications for this and stuff, but it's nice.
No, I think that's great stuff, Pace. Pace, I'll tell you quick. I've actually had requests of people wanting to do like a hangout with you, a Q&A hangout with you.
Really?
We're asking you about helium and everything. If you're
I definitely didn't want this to be the helium show or Sovryn Tech to become the helium.
I know, but I'm just getting this out of the way while we're here right now, and I know other listeners right now, might be interested in that. And so if
you want to schedule it, that would be great. We're actually going to be making a video to go along with the recording that Stephanie made for the audio 1-minute explainer for helium, and I'm publishing all the stats right now for all of our pop balloons. Anybody can go see the raw data right now. So so there's a lot of things that it's a lot better time to do something like that now,
cool.
the next week or two than ever before. So I would love to do that. Okay. I'm sure a lot of people are just like, whoa, it just sort of like, sip and then like through the nose, but they're not sure they're not sure what exactly they were that we were talking about. But yeah.
All right, so then I'll be in touch with you and we'll facilitate that. I think that would be great to do a show like that, and definitely people are excited for it. So Pace, thanks, man, for being on the show, and great points, great stuff to bring up, man.
Glad to talk about it.
All right, man. Okay, so let's see what else we got. We're almost at about the hour mark, but I'll give it a few more minutes. Oh, is there the lovely and hyper intelligent Dr. Stephanie Murphy is here?
Can we have an announcement?
Can we have an announcement? Actually, wow, that's weird. It's coming out with kind of a buzz. Did you hear that? But you can have an announcement. Go ahead, make an announcement. That's okay.
I checked on your pork roast and it's not done yet. So if you want to go some more, you can.
Oh man, this pork roast. I shared this pork roast on social media. I was like, this is going to be amazing. Cooking it myself.
Yeah, and people were like, what is that? It's like this big red piece of meat.
Yeah, it's the heart of my enemies. And no, I'm kidding. That won't go over
I know
well.
You're a Klingon, but you got the bathrobe.
Okay, well, thank you so much, love. Did you have a question for the Golden Stallion?
Me?
Yeah.
No, but I could think of one, I guess, if you want.
That's okay. You don't have to. So
Put me on the spot.
Yeah, I know I did. All right, thanks, love. So, so now anybody that's not listening to this live just got a little preview of dinner talk, and I think that's fun. Kind of what's going on in the oven. So, boy, okay, yeah. Someone said it's Mistress Murphy. Damn right. Okay, so I'm going to read a little bit here from the live chat. Let's see. Hans says super tardy to the party, and yeah, that's all right. If you have a question, feel free to, or he says, I could settle for lightsabers. Yeah, lightsabers, funny damn thing about lightsabers. Like this is one of the, I was talking about going to science fiction conventions, years ago, and that was always one of the best arguments. And like the argument finally ended. And I remember it was at a dinner table, and the guy said, you got to understand that bending, because the idea is that somehow something was stopping the lightsaber from going any longer. Okay. And so, for the science of it, the idea was that, okay, whatever possible force field is actually stopping like plasma or light or, whatever they were saying that a lightsaber was. That, whatever the amount of power it took to generate that would give you cancer instantly. That kind of ended the whole thing. Because otherwise, you'd be writing on napkins and whatever, and, saying, okay, yeah, well, if we did this, and yeah, but yeah, we all love lightsabers, don't we? I certainly do. Let's see. So what do we got? Oh, why? Oh, here we go. Here's another one from Pentazoid. Okay. Well, this is kind of I don't know if it's a dire or a sour note to end on. So, why don't you want children? Okay. Oof. I have actually talked about this on Patreon Q&A episodes in the past. And in many ways, the simplest answer, well, okay, so two parts. One is that for the largest part of my 20s, I was married. I was actually married for 7 years, and I got a divorce. In that marriage, for lack of a better term, I inherited, kind of 3 children within that marriage. So I have, and they were all young. They're all very young. So I actually have experience, in, stewarding children. Though at the time it was, I was not the anarchist you see before you. And I dare say, like, because I don't even like to use the word raising children anymore. I like to think parents are just stewards of their children because they're just little human beings. But I was not of that mindset at the time. I was still religious. It was not the best of pictures, for myself. So not to say that all Christians are somehow bad at raising their kids. I'm not saying that by any stretch. And yeah, I like that. Someone in the live chat said adults are just tall children. That's how it should be. Okay. That's how it should be. I talk about that all the time, is that, unfortunately too many people don't escape their childhood, and get into adulthood with their imaginations intact. And so if adults were just tall children, I think that'd be a beautiful, kind of a beautiful thing. So anyway, so I have some experience in what it's like to raise children. I know how poorly I was at it. I am not afraid of necessarily, of doing that again, but I feel like what I am afraid of is that what I know now of what it takes to raise a child. Like I feel like, kids are, they're like butterfly wings. I mean, kind of once kind of touched in a certain way. Like, I feel like, the ramifications, the damage can go on for so long. And so, yeah, like that's a responsibility I don't want to take on, and I'm not talking about physical touching. I'm just talking even emotional. People ignore. It's like, oh, wow, that's great. You don't hit your kids. Well, yeah, but there's, damaging a child, can be done emotionally. It can be done in so many ways. And if all people do is just concentrate on the physicality, well, they're missing, 75% of the picture, in my opinion. So I don't want to have kids because, yeah, honestly, I don't want that responsibility, because I feel like it's a 24/7, you're always on, and I want my autonomy. That's the other part of it, is that like, I love my autonomy. I love the ability to do what I want when I get up and all this. That's not a slight against parents. That's not a slight against having children, nothing of the sort. It's just, that's really the two reasons, is just that, yeah. I want my autonomy, and also, I'm really scared to death of, doing something, not intentionally, but even just doing something unintentionally, that could potentially, hamper a child, for their whole life. And that's a tragedy, to me that it just, yeah, I'd never want to be responsible for. So, that got a little dark. Stephanie, you're looking at me. Did you have something you wanted to say?
Do they want to know why I don't want to have kids either?
They didn't ask, but you're certainly welcome to say. I'm sure the audience would love to hear why that is.
Okay, let me plug myself in.
Okay. They can't, it's all text right now. You're not going to hear any audio except me.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Go ahead.
Well, I agree with you, Brian. And I really see where you're coming from about like just being worried that you would make so many mistakes. Mm-hmm. Because yeah, I see that too. With a lot of parents that I know that are our age, like some of them have kids accidentally and just do the best they can, but they really don't know what they're doing. Some of them have kids intentionally and think they're doing a great job, but there's still actually are problems there. And it's a hard job and it's a thankless job. Society doesn't really value it because pretty much almost anyone can reproduce, right?
Yeah.
But being a parent and being a good parent is a whole nother level, and it takes a lot of work and a lot of preparation. And I don't feel prepared for that to take on that kind of responsibility in so many ways. And also, like, if I wanted to, it would be something that would be worth preparing for. Mm-hmm. If I was really interested in having children, I think it would be totally worth training for. Like you train for an Olympic sport, right?
Absolutely.
You read books about it. You interview other parents. You spend time with children and non-parent, like, your friends' kids and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You buy a bunch of stuff to get the household ready for the child. You start investing for their college or whatever, if that's something you want to do.
Right.
You make the decisions and you have the hard conversations. Are we going to give the kid kid vaccines? Are we going to send him to school? Are we going to do this and that?
Yeah.
And you not only have those hard conversations with your partner, hopefully you have a partner, because it's really hard to raise a kid with one person, let alone two. It's hard to raise a kid with two people sometimes, two adults. I mean, I really believe that whole thing, that the more loving, stable adults a kid has, probably the better they'll be able to do in life, because it's hard with one person, and it's certainly hard with two people as well. I don't even know how much easier it gets with 4 or 6 or grandparents involved or whatever.
Well, I'd love to see that explored.
I would too. There's a little bit of research on it from people who had these sort of polyamorous, like swinger households in the 1970s. And by all accounts, the kids turn out great. They do great in life. They do well as 2-parent, kids. But at the same time, those data are kind of skewed by socioeconomic stuff, because it tended to be like white middle class people who would do that kind of lifestyle anyway. So that biases how their kids turn out, because it's a class thing. So anyway, that was a tangent. But yeah, I mean, I would totally be willing to do all that preparation and training and all that hard work if it were for something I really wanted, if I felt that it was part of my mission in life, or something I really wanted to do in life, to have babies and kids. And I do think like pregnancy is really fascinating. It's really cool. I think it's a cool process, but I just don't want to. Like,
sure.
When I think about, would I rather make more humans and essentially put everything in my life on hold for the next 20 to 30 years, or potentially forever? Because if you have a special needs kid, they never gain independence, potentially, right?
Right.
That could happen. So do I want to put everything on my whole life am I done living? And the answer is no.
Sure.
No, I'm not. There's a lot of stuff I want to do. I want to do voiceovers. I want to have a great sex life. I want to have adventures. I want to travel around and not be tied down. I want to wake up whenever I fucking feel like it. I want to sleep in.
Yeah.
I want to be able to just plan my whole day that day. I don't want to have to rely on a schedule or be on someone else's time. I don't want someone else determining when I'm going to eat, when I'm going to go to sleep, how much I'm going to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big deal for me. That's why I quit medical school.
Yeah.
I want that autonomy and freedom over my own life. And again, like if I thought it was worth it, I would maybe make that trade-off. But to me, it's not worth it.
Sure.
And if I ever get to a point where I feel like I'm kind of bored and done with doing what I want to do all day, or if I feel like I'm ready to take on that huge of a commitment, or if I start feeling it, then maybe I'd explore it. But honestly, I really don't think I will ever get to that point. If I did, it would probably be I would probably be way too old to reproduce.
Oh, come on, Sarai and Abram. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't think it would be in my 40s or 50s or maybe 60s. But then when you're 60, you adopt a kid, and you're 80 by the time it's independent, ready to live on its own. That's not really fair. You could drop dead, So I don't know. I mean, I just don't think it's going to happen for me.
Sure.
As fascinating as I find pregnancy, and as much as I respect it, I don't want to do it myself, because that's when the autonomy loss begins for me. When you have as a woman, when you have a being inside your body, everybody starts thinking of your body as like the most important. It's like to serve that fetus. That's the societal shift happens right away when you're pregnant. Everybody's like, oh, you shouldn't be eating that. You shouldn't be doing this. You should not be taking risks. You're pregnant. Hell, hold up. Don't get to decide what you do with your body.
You're saying you get the signal of losing autonomy right out of the gate.
Oh, yeah. And the way people treat you.
Yeah. Like, definitely you do have another human there. You want to be very conscious of what you're. Yeah.
Of course. And they deserve that kind of respect. It's just that there's a clear autonomy conflict between the fetus and the mother right away. And then also it starts literally biologically, not even just from a social perspective, it starts taking over your body. It's making hormones. Mm-hmm. It's keeping you awake at night. It's doing stuff. And then after it's born, and who knows what damage comes on the way out,
Yeah.
Potentially a major surgery, or squeezing a 10-pound person through a hole that stretches, but not that much always. after that, it starts commandeering your milk. Because you want to breastfeed, right? That's the healthiest thing for a baby. But then it's like you lose autonomy for that. And some mothers are very glad to give up that autonomy. They're pleased to do that. They would do it in a heartbeat, and they'll do it over and over again for every child they have. And good for them. But that's just not how I feel. I don't want to do that. And if you do, that's great. And if you do, thank you. Congratulations. I'm very glad my parents did that for me.
Yeah.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad to be alive. It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm glad to be alive. And so I want to use my life. I don't want to give my life to someone else right now.
Sure.
I don't want to give up all that. So yeah, thanks for letting me rant. That felt kind of good.
No, I can already see and hear they love hearing it. So in fact, I'm going to read from some of the YouTube live chat here. Pace says prep for it like a mission to Mars.
Yeah, it is like it's an intergenerational ship.
Yeah, well, and he said right under that, he said multi-generational households have better outcomes on average, which I can believe. I mean,
some people say that's why humans live to grandparent age so that they can contribute their reproductive fitness to the grandchildren.
Yes, actually, that is my answer to the very harsh, what otherwise scientifically is seen as the harsh reality of genetic determinism, meaning that once you have a baby, nature doesn't care about you anymore. That's actually my exact answer to that is no.
Grandparents.
That's because grandparents have a total role to fill, in the life of that child that you just produced that, nature figured out. That's why I don't take such a hard line on genetic determinism.
Yeah. And as in terms of legacy too, people say, well, don't you want to leave a legacy? Don't you want to do something that lasts after you're gone? No, I don't really care what happens after I'm gone. I know that might sound kind of nihilistic and people won't like that, but I'm with Ayn Rand when she said the world ends when you die, because it does. My world ends when I die. I don't know what's going to, even if you do have a bunch of kids, okay, passing on your DNA, well, your DNA gets diluted with every single generation. I mean, my distant ancestors may have had plans for their children. They may have had total plans for what was going to happen 100 years into the future, 5 generations later. And I don't know what those plans were.
Right. That
gets lost in the shuffle. I don't know what my great-great-great-grandparents wanted me to do on Earth.
Yeah.
And I'm probably never going to know because that information was lost. And I feel like I can leave more of a legacy by recording my voice and putting it on the internet, and then maybe someone will hear it, like Harry Brown, his radio shows or whatever.
Sure.
And to do that, I don't need to copy my DNA, and I don't need to do all the work to raise a kid. I just need to put my personality out there. And if it sticks with future generations, that'll probably have more of an effect on them. Those ideas will have more of an effect on them than my DNA ever could.
Yeah, I mean, and that's honestly, that's not even a new concept. Even within Christianity, in the New Testament, it's, I think Paul says it, where he says that, the mother with no children is actually the mother to everyone. I mean, that's kind of the same concept, is that your mind fruit ends up bearing instead of your, vulva fruit or whatever. I don't know.
The fruit of your loins.
The fruit of your loins. Yeah. So sure. I agree with that Ayn Rand quote. She was actually quoting somebody else that she couldn't remember the name of, but she said, it's not that my life will end, it's that the world will end. And her point is that, what can you do after that? I mean, that's a very old philosophical debate that I have often with people. It's stoicism versus hedonism. Stoicism says there's a future you need to be thinking about. Hedonism says, what the hell are you talking about? You can't put expectations on somebody from birth.
There's a balance to be found, right?
There
because
could be.
For some things, like if you don't eat that candy bar right now, you're going to be thin tomorrow, and that's good, right?
Sure.
But if you work really hard to get a PhD now, you might earn a lot more money later. That was what I was told anyway.
Sure. No, fair enough.
Didn't really work out for me. But anyway, if you delay gratification within your lifetime, sometimes you can get greater rewards, right? Than going for the immediate payout. But at the same time, to delay gratification beyond even your own lifetime seems a little silly to me, because then you can never enjoy what you did. Right?
Yeah. There's kind of, so yeah, we're getting into
it's awfully altruistic. It's just, I don't know, something about that doesn't sit right with me. Like, I'm not going to trash the earth, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to pollute the planet and ruin it for future generations.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's something to that, leave it, do the campsite rule, leave it as you found it.
Yep.
But at the same time, like, I'm not going to stop breathing because I'm creating carbon, CO2,
Right. Yeah.
I'm not going to sacrifice all my life and happiness so that a future generation may have something better. Because then what do they do? Do they just keep passing it on to future generations? And they have no fun in life? I mean, come on.
Yeah,
well, have some fun.
Right. I mean, and this is a key point in my opinion, as far as like, with being a steward to children and birthing children. I mean, there's an old saying that our children are our eyes into a future that we won't see. But no,
it's their eyes.
Not you. That's their eyes.
Right.
Daddy. Like, you got to get over this. Mm-hmm. And
they're a whole new person. They're not going to do what you want them to do. They're their own person with their own goals and their own dreams. And I think that's really important to accept, because so many people have children thinking that their children are going to fulfill the mission that they never did, that the parent never did, get to do the thing that the parent never got to do. And that's just setting themselves up for disappointment, because the kid is their own person and they may not want to do what you wanted them to do. And that's a harsh awakening for a lot of parents.
Yeah. In fact, I just want to read a little more from the live chat. One person says, thanks. I feel like a roller coaster right now, ranging from, he was saying thanks to, because this person's having, just recently had a child, I guess, ranging from scared to I got this. And well, I think you're actually you're on the right track. That's okay.
That's very honest. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And then the next person is, I have 4. You would both make excellent parents, referencing you and I, Stephanie.
Thank you.
But I totally respect your rationale. So
thanks. And appreciate that. Not everyone respects it.
Yeah, which is
most people don't respect it, actually.
Yep.
I mean, this is great that we're getting support from parents, and yeah, like, thank you. You're doing a really amazing thing that you probably don't get very much credit for.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully your kids are your own reward. Like, you have happiness because you have children and that they're bringing you a happy life, because that's something you wanted to do, is be a parent. Hopefully that's the case.
Yeah, well, go ahead.
So I can't remember what I was going to say for the rest of it. But I wanted to say, so we're getting feedback from parents.
Yeah.
But there are people who are going to listen to this, if not right now, maybe later in the future.
Yes.
There are people who are going to listen to this who are going to say, thank you, Stephanie and Brian, because I felt that way too. But you don't hear the message very often from culture that it's okay to not have children, especially for women. They're expected to.
Sure.
It's almost like, well, when are you going to have children? It's not if, it's when.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay to say never, or, I want to have 0 children.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
a decision you can absolutely make. And you're not the only one. There's increasing numbers of people who don't have children, and it's by choice, and it's a rational decision, just like we have put some thought into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The original question asker said, thanks, Stephanie. Glad to have your input too. So just type that out.
Cool. Thank you.
And unfortunately, we had some other people that I think wanted to get in some stuff, but I think we're running a little long. So, but yeah. I mean, that's such a huge subject. I mean, that's
you want me to go check on the roast again?
If you want to check on it, you can. That's fine.
Okay.
Not sending the woman off to the kitchen, folks. All right. Relax.
No, I volunteered.
Actually, I think Jay, did you have something you wanted to say? If you want to add it in, go for it. If you want to unmute yourself, I think you're still in the room.
Yep. Yeah. It was about the kids thing, and it's a reiteration somewhat of Stephanie's point she made about people are very resistant to the idea of not having children. Like, everyone that has approached me about this idea, and I've decided to not have, I'm 37, and I decided at 22 when I had a vasectomy, no kids. And I never got curiosity, what I consider real curiosity. I was confronted about it. Like, one guy was like, oh, you'll change your mind. Like, people were offended if you tell them I'm not having kids. I even talked to Steph Molyneux about it, and my answer of I don't want kids because, similar to what you were saying, wasn't good enough. Like I had to dig deep in my parental history to figure out what was wrong with me that I didn't want kids. So,
yeah, actually, Jay, I talked to Steph Molyneux about that same thing, a private conversation. This was probably in 2010 or 11, so it was quite a while ago. But I kind of just told him like, hey, I really like what you say about parenting. It's helped me figure out a lot of stuff about my own childhood, but I don't want to become a parent myself. And the first thing he said was, but you'd be such a good mom. And, I appreciate that. That's a nice thing, but it doesn't really acknowledge that my choice is valid. And that was kind of the reaction. Like you said, I didn't really get a lot of curiosity either when I told people I wasn't interested in having kids. It would just be like, well, either invalidating what I said, you'll change your mind. Oh, I said that too. And then I ended up having 5,
Right.
You'll change your mind. My grandmother actually even basically wished that I would get knocked up by accident. She said, maybe there'll be an accident. And I thought that was horrible. I was really hurt by that.
Which wasn't going to happen with me because Jay
you have a vasectomy too.
Yeah, I have a vasectomy like Jay. So
So I empathy to you, Jay, because I've gotten the same kinds of reactions. Either they invalidate it, or they look at you like something's wrong with you, or they assume that something must be wrong with you. And that's offensive too, because what if somebody wants to have kids but can't? Like, what if they're infertile for some reason? And people are like, well, when are you going to have kids? And they're like, well, I really want to, but I can't. And it must be very hurtful for them to have to decide whether they're going to talk about it or how much they're going to share with this person who's clearly not that empathetic. And so it's a question that I think people should try to steer clear of asking, especially when they don't know someone very well.
Unless you're in a Q&A.
If they're not. Unless you're in a Q&A on Sovryn Tech.
That's kind of the point.
But you're talking about babies, kids.
Yeah. So, Jay, did you have anything else quick?
That was pretty much it. And just real quick, what reminds me, what we're talking about here, what Steph's response was, and I'm going to make a joke about Alex Jones because I have to, because he's easy to target. I remember Alex Jones getting genuinely upset like he always does, slamming his fist down, red faced, I'm going to have kids because fuck the New World Order. I'm like, it's activism parenting. Kids are not your army. This is not your army.
Yeah, that's a great point.
They want to have kids to help raise the kids to be better people. That's what Steph's purpose is, right? And I think that's where some of their defenses come up with well, why don't you want to make the world a better place? Dude, I just don't want to have kids. I just can't you just say, okay, fine? Why are you going to have to ask me about my grandma's dog from 50,000 years ago, making me not want to have kids?
It must feel, when you make a decision that's different than another person's decision, sometimes it can feel like it's a judgment of their choice. And it's not. I suppose with our actions, we're choosing a different path, but we don't have to be judging other people who took the other path from us. And I can see there's a lot of parents out there that I totally admire.
Oh yeah, big time.
But and again, about the Liberty babies or whatever.
Yeah, Liberty babies. That's a good term.
That's a lot of expectations to put on a kid. How is that not an unchosen obligation to put on the kid, right? That they have to, you want them to turn out to have certain political views or whatever, or to have certain ideas. Right. And I don't think you should have any expectations about that for your kid. Just have a kid, and the only expectation should be to give them a happy life. Right?
Yeah.
Right. And beyond that, you can't hope for much, because you're creating a new person and they're their own person.
Yeah. In myself, I would argue that happiness is the meaning of life. Is to be happy.
Yeah. It's not to be liberty, whatever, right. That's not the meaning of life. It's to have a happy life.
Yeah. I brought this up. Yeah. Jay, thanks so much for your points. Right on.
Did we let you talk enough? I feel like you had more to say.
No, it's fine. Yeah, I always have more to say when I talk to people like you, but we all got
Thanks, man.
Right on. So, yeah, this is a point I brought up even recently, or not recently, actually. I guess it was probably over a year or 2 years ago or something like that.
I'll check on the pork.
With what was it, multi-generational ships, we're talking about space travel in this one. So Stephanie's off to get to the kitchen, woman. No, I'm kidding, folks, please. But, yeah, don't even joke about it. All right. But Yeah. So sorry, I lost my train. I want to wrap this up because we're going about an hour and a half now. So, so with multi-generational ships, like this is some way people say that, okay, well, what we could do is that we could put babies, or like we could put families on shuttles, on starships or whatever, and then even though we can't go faster than light, we can get to, I don't know, Proxima B, or you take your pick Alpha Centauri or something, and you could send them there, and they could just have babies on the way. And this is why it's multi-generational. And by the time they actually get there, maybe it'll be the third generation, and then that third generation can colonize the place. And it's like, even that really rubs me the wrong way, where it's like, again, look, having kids, fine and dandy, do so, but like to have them with this expectation that they are going to go to some other planet and effectively, build the pyramids for you, that's horrendous in my opinion. Like I really take a lot of issue with that concept of the multi-generational ship, and all this, because you don't put your expectations on kids. If those kids want to turn their asses around and go back to Earth, you fucking let them. Well, anyway, that's getting into wild speculation and science fiction in a future that we're not exactly at yet, to where that would even be possible. So, okay. I think that's it. Like I said, we did about an hour and a half, and I hope it was a wonderful time. I'm welcome to hearing everybody's feedback. I appreciate everybody that participated, had a part in it. It was great to have people that we could interact with and go back and forth. I thought that was just absolutely enjoyable. Is the pork roast done? Lovely and hyper intelligent Dr. Stephanie.
No,
Murphy?
It's not done yet.
It is not done yet.
It still has more time.
Okay. Well, either way, I think it's good to wrap it up.
Okay.
So definitely more to do today. So, and yes, and of course, thanks to Stephanie for being a part of it. And she's waving, and just a great time. We'll be doing more of these. So, and someone just said, heart to you two beautiful people. Thank you so much. Generation ships. It sounds like slavery, but with extra steps. Someone else said that's brilliant. Yeah, and then there was a thank you. So yes, thank you so much for being a part of it. And if you want to, you can message me on Patreon or Twitter or something, or email me, and you can let me know kind of what may be the best time for you. If like a Sunday at 4 p.m. is not the best time. So far, I found that this might be the best time, but you can let me know about that, because I want to make this available to as many patrons as possible. So if you're hearing this after the fact, or you're hearing it now, don't hesitate to get in touch with me. And again, obviously, as you can see, you can ask anything you want. It doesn't have to be science or tech related. I'm happy to talk about anything, and happy just to connect with people that make all of this go round and round. And some very kind words said about me in this, and all across the board. And I return absolutely all of that kindness, all of that care and empathy to every single one of you, because you make this possible, and I can't thank you enough for it. So anyway, enough of that. Got some doozies coming out this week for Sovryn Tech, and of course there'll be a new Sex and Science Hour. You'll get your Wednesday Q&A, all kinds of stuff, and maybe I'll have a few surprises, maybe some special guests if I can line it up. We'll see how that goes. So, I'll see you on the other side. Oh yeah.
You just experienced Sovryn Tech. Go to sovryntech.com, that's SOVRYN tech.com, and connect with us there. Find links from today's show and catch our podcast feed. Sovryn Tech is copy heart. Copying art is an act of love, and love is not subject to law. So please share the show however you like. Welcome to the evolution.